Morning, viewers, or afternoon, wherever you are. I'm joined here today by Elk. Elk, thank you very much for taking a break from the skies to sort of answer some questions. Very, very happy to have you with us. So if you could just start by telling us a little bit about yourself.
So, hello everyone, my name is Elk. Originally, I come from Ukraine. I started flying FPV there. I started when I was, I think, 13 years old. Now I'm 20. Currently, I live in Germany. So, I have flown FPV for, you can say, 7 years, but that would be a bit of a lie because I had a bit of a break. So, cumulatively, I have probably flown 3 or 4 years.
Nice. Okay. No, that's really good. I think it's always good when you can come back to a hobby, and FPV's changed so much in that amount of time. It's probably something a little bit different, or drone flying is a little bit different than when you first started. Where did you first get into flying drones? Why? Sorry.
Generally, I have built my drone because I was into the electronics. My parents really, not, I don't want to say pushed me, but encouraged me to get into the electronics as a hobby, to tinker into 3D printing. Well, 3D printing came after drones, so my parents were mainly the reason for me to start building drones, to start flying them. So yeah, that's how I got into the drones at 13 years old.
That's amazing,
Yeah.
actually. It's a really fulfilling hobby, especially when you're that young. So that's good. And so, why did you go back into drones, and why FPV now specifically?
Specifically into FPV because I have always considered it quite fun. It's like electronics, but a little bit for more punky people, like skating. Or it's always felt like some sort of a connection, but a little bit of a nerdy form of skating. I came back to the FPV mainly because my friends started to fly it again when I came into the uni in Schweinfurt. In our uni, I came into some FPV projects. Well, not FPV drone related projects, and I started acquiring hardware after that. I used my old remote. It was a good old FlySky A6. If people who started flying like 10 years ago, they still might remember it, but it was like a pretty standard cheap remote back then. It was quite fun. After that, I have upgraded my equipment a little bit. I have some of it right now.
Nice.
That's my good old, well, not old, Jumper T14. The gimbals were a very big upgrade because on FlySky 6 they are potentiometer based, which doesn't give you as much of a precision. It gave me a lot of bad habits when I firstly started playing sims when I was again 13, 14 years old of age. When I came back to FPV, I still flown on FlySky 6, which also gave me a bad habit of correcting turns because of a bad resolution, and that's the reason why I switched to T14 to get better gimbals. So my
Nice.
precision would be much better. So yeah, FPV evolved quite a bit from that time because at least in Ukraine, we started with basic AliExpress kits, which most people build the same basic drone. It was a 5-inch with some sort of a Chinese copy of some frame. I don't remember correctly. But my first FPV drone, which I flown FPV in acro mode, it was a very bad drone to do that. It was a copy of a DJI F405 frame. I think that was the name. It's basically a big 400mm frame.
Wow.
It was quite a big drone back then, but again, it was a standard that people did build because in young minds, the bigger the better. During that time, it had a 4S battery, which by today's standard is quite low for that big of a drone. It was a fun flyer until it crashed a few times, and my parents basically didn't have as much resources because FPV is quite an expensive hobby. So that was the main reason why I stopped for some time, because basically money ran out for that type of crashing.
Yeah. No, I can imagine. Just to speak more on your experience in your gear, I think having a look at your profile, what really interested me was your use of the Oculus Rift CV1. Is that consumer version 1 as your goggles? That's like a normal VR headset that you're using as your FPV goggles, right? How did you set that up? How do you get the sort of module into the headset?
So basically there's two ways that I use it. First way is like the most consumer one. It is with my laptop. One of my of the things that I regret buying is this cheap SkyDroid dual receiver. It's nice that it is, again, a dual receiver, that it has two receivers inside, but it's cheap. It has quite big of a latency, so I can't fly as precisely with my own equipment. But basically I carry my laptop around, the small receiver with whatever antenna I want to use that day. And I have a virtual desktop which basically glues a picture to my head view, because on Windows it's pretty much impossible to mess with video drivers as good as on Linux. And that's why I have my second setup. Basically, for one of the drone project, we use some variation of Wi-Fi broadcast or OpenHD. I think the consumer FPV version is based on OpenIPC again. They
Right.
have Runcam 2, I think was the name of the Wi-Fi link to from Runcam. It's based on open source FPV like-ish setup. It also has quite a bit of latency, but not as big. And on Raspberry, you can display directly onto the Oculus Rift screens, so the latency is quite smaller and it's not as resource intensive and it's smaller. The picture is nicer than most analog headsets would have. Not as good as, for example, DJI ones, because I have tried from some of my club mates. DJI has quite good of a picture and a pixel density than Oculus Rift 3.1 because it's an old headset, but it's still nicer than most analog ones. But I would not recommend it because it's bulky. It has too big of a latency, which I am aiming to make a little bit better. I need to develop some kind of a board for the Raspberry Pi. I have started designing it, but we have our exam period in the university right now, so I don't have as much time to finish it. Hopefully I will get one day.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm just really impressed. I think it's again, it's one thing to be able to go out and buy. Again, it's similar to getting a bind and fly drone, and it's another thing to be able to build it. And I love to see people sort of engineering their solutions. So I was quite impressed when you mentioned you were using that. So yeah, I wanted to ask, you sort of mentioned that you started when you were 13, and so you picked it up again with FPV. If you could share with us, at what moment did FPV sort of click for you? At what point did you decide that this was the thing that you'd continue doing?
It probably clicked for me when my friend bought a controller again, when he invited me to try the simulators again, because he heard that I have flown it previously. So it clicked for me a few sessions of liftoff after, when I get the hang of the controls back. And after
Nice.
that, I started remembering how fun it was flying the drones and having it. So I have started acquiring some of my gear shortly after that and training more into the sims. And
Yeah.
the moment that it's really clicked for me was when I have flown my drone that I have built for the first time. It was not the first time, my second build drone. It was again a 10-inch drone.
Wow.
I just got a lot of parts for really cheaply. It was an aluminum frame 10-inch drone, which was basically indestructible because it's a metal frame. And surprisingly, it flown really, really well. For the size, it was quite a fun drone. But because my heart always yearns for the skies, for higher altitudes, I lost the drone one day, which was quite tragic for me, because it had a Runcam sump on it with a lot of videos that I had of generally flying around, which I did not recover.
Nah, that's tough.
The reason why on this drone I have mounted an air tag, so at least I have some chance of finding it. And because this drone is a smaller one, I fly it mostly in urban areas. Well, not urban per se, but where people usually can come around.
Yeah.
On such small drones, I would recommend putting an tag on. On the bigger ones, the proper SIM tracker with a GPS would be a much better idea.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. No, I think losing a drone is sadly part of the process, but I definitely feel your pain. A friend of mine, what he does actually, just hit the mic. There's I think it's called Tractive, but it's one of those collars you put on your dogs or your cats to track them in the neighborhood, and he puts that on his drone, and it works really, really well. But he already has a subscription, but I would recommend that as well. It's it might be slightly better than an AirTag, but still really good.
Need to look into that.
Yeah. So you mentioned the 10-inch drone. Then where do you usually fly? Because you said you've got that smaller one for more urban areas or where there's more people. For the larger drones, where do you usually take them out?
Larger drones, because I live in Germany, we need to obey our laws.
Of course.
Generally, everyone in FPV needs to do that, but that's a bit of later in questions. So I have a nice field near my house because I don't live in as much of a big city. So it's a short walk, and it's far enough from people that I wouldn't be crashing into anyone, and nobody comes around to check on me. So that's the place that I mainly flown it, and there are a few other fields around my town that you can go and fly to. Also, because I live in Germany and I live in Bavarian, in Bayern, I'm quite close to the Alps, so that's the place that I really want to go fly to. We got quite a lot of snow today, which kinda suggests that I would need to go and fly. But to go to the Alps, I need to borrow goggles for the better setup because mine have too much of a latency to safely fly that far.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. No, I'm really jealous. I think it's the one thing I haven't done yet. I've got a range of drones. I think the 5 inch is the largest that I have, but I actually don't even fly it that much because it's I don't have enough space to really make it worth it. It's so big and heavy and noisy, and there's usually people around. So, but no, that makes sense. No, definitely let me know when you finally hit those Alps. It will be good to see your footage. Good man. So in that case then, and I think just as far as like your lifespan, I think you'd probably be one of those people who have been flying for most of their lives compared to a lot of people that I speak to. And so this question might have a different connotation for you than them. But how has FPV sort of changed how you see the world or see yourself?
FPV, I can say that it's really changed the way I see the world, but it always feels very freeing when you fly to your drone again, because skies feel quite closer than they usually are when you're in your drone, in your goggles, or in your screen, depends on whatever you use. So it feels quite freeing, and I can say that it helped me to go through a lot of hard stuff when you can just take your drone and go fly somewhere for like 15 minutes or so. Depends on how much batteries you have, how many batteries you have.
Yeah, no, of course. No, that's cool. Yeah, no, I think for me, it's definitely a fulfilling hobby, and nothing has really compared to it. The community, I think, is probably one of the best communities that I've encountered because a lot of people have helped me sort of navigate the space in FPV. But yeah, nothing compares to either flying something that you built or just, yeah, when you put the goggles on for the first time. I remember putting the goggles on for the first time, and when I took off, like I physically sort of lurched with the drone, you know what I mean? And so it was sort of like,
Yeah.
yeah, getting used to that and the sort of out of body experience, and then somewhere in the middle you sync up and like you are the drone, and it's an amazing feeling. So yeah, no, I can definitely relate to that freeing feeling that you sort of mentioned. So with that, do you have any sort of pre-flight rituals, anything you do that sort of keeps you calm or gets you ready to fly or gets your drone ready?
What can I consider a pre-flight ritual? Well, first thing first, I take my drone out, depends on which one I fly. This currently is my only one. So unfold, well, it doesn't go as quick when I show it to people. So unfold the drone, check that all folds are nice and tight, that no screws are loose, because sometimes you lose screws in the FPV and it gets annoying. Then check if there is anything in the motors, if they spin freely, and check if the props are screwed on correctly. If there is any play in the props, how tight they are, if there is anything broken on the drone, anything seems like it can be shortening, so it won't basically go up in flames. Kind of a weird ritual when I take my battery home. Depends if I'm forgetful or not. I take either my hair tie that I have for my hair or the rubber band. I tag the balance connectors with it to help. I smell the battery to see if it smells funny, to check if it's broken or anything, and connect it and basically go fly. Either toss my drone or place it somewhere.
Yeah, no, that's solid. I can get behind
Yep.
that. I think the visual inspection as well as inspecting the batteries, I think is definitely it's something I've had to learn the hard way. I'm usually inspecting the drones after I've crashed, but yeah, no, it's usually when I arm the quad and I hear something in the propellers and I'm like, oh God, you know. No,
Yes.
that's good. That's that drone. Sorry, that's the Darwin. It's one of the Darwin Fold ones, right? The Fold Ape
Yes,
4.
that's Full Day 2 bind and flight mod. Yeah, it's BNF model.
Nice. I'm just learning about the Darwin drones, but because the 2-inch 2S, I think Baby Ape Mini that just came out looks
Mm-hmm.
really good and really cheap, so I might pick that up. Nice.
They are quite cheap. That was one of the reasons I took it. Second one, because I really like the foldable frame, and I really wanted to try foldable frame and foldable props. So it was a nice combination of everything that was a bit cheaper than buying it by myself with what we have here.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yep.
And so when you're out there flying, whether you're hitting the mountains or more urban areas, how do you decide that a send is sort of worth the risk?
In urban areas, it's a little bit simpler. It's when there is no people around for me to hit, which
Yeah.
is kind of important for me not to get bothered because I'm on a student visa. So I need not to get in trouble.
Yeah, got to keep your head low.
Yeah. And in mountains, it's basically when I feel that I cannot lose, that I will not lose my drone when doing something. So when I will be able to retrieve it, or when somehow I will get my drone back.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And overall, what does sending mean to you?
For me, sending is always the last try of a day. It's either you're ready to break your drone and go fix it at house, or you're willing to finally complete something. When you
Yeah,
agree with yourself that it's either the last try of a day or it will be the successful try of the day.
absolutely. All or nothing. Yeah, no, I can get behind that. That's really interesting. Good. So thank you. So yeah, as I've sort of asked you, and I asked everybody who I interviewed to share a video, and you chose to share this one. So, could you just tell me a little bit why it is you chose to share this video? I'm already really interested in it because I haven't seen a Hex drone since I had a friend who worked in production, and he used to build these for the larger Red cameras. But yeah, why did you choose to share this video?
Well, firstly, it's a hex drone, which always looks kind of strange. And secondly, I really like videos of that guy because he flies line of sight, which I sometimes do, but usually either in horizon mode or in level mode, because I can't comprehend how he can feel his drone that good and how can he orientate it just by looking at it. When people fly or see planes, I kind of get behind how they can do that because they can see the tail, they can see how big their wings. But with drones, even with the big ones, with 10 inches, when they are painted, when they have lights on, it's still quite hard for me to orient them when they're like 10 meters away or something like, and they're not that close to you. And he can do flips and fly quite precisely, I would say. With that small of a drone, and even with having it hex without any lights, I'm quite impressed on how good of a feel he has for his drone. That's my
Wow.
main point. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really I think line of sight is one of those lost skills because when I started FPV, it was straight into getting in the goggles, and my line of sight has gotten better because I've practiced it sort of just in my room. But it's always impressed me, line of sight. But this is actually insane. If you hadn't have said that he's flying in line of sight, I wouldn't have guessed. But obviously, yeah, there's no camera on that thing. Wow. Yeah, no, that's really impressive. Oh, no, thanks for sharing this. I think I'm gonna I've lost my mouse. Go on. Yeah, I'm gonna subscribe to this guy because it's yeah, I want to check out more of his videos. But that was really impressive. Really impressive. Wow.
These are simple videos of flying, but still they are quite impressive for me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Cool. No, so thanks. Yeah, no, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. We'll move on to the next section of questions, and this one is I always kind of look forward to it because I feel like there's always interesting things. But analog versus digital, which would you choose and why?
If I had unlimited budget, I would go with digital. I love analog for the feel of it, for the looks of it, because it looks like when I started it, it can look quite good if you have onboard recorders, and it has a better distance as far as I can understand, as my knowledge of radio goes. But digital is so much clearer and so much. The latency is a little bit worse if you can feel it, but no, if I had unlimited budget, I would go for digital. Actually, Ascent has recently recently and finally unveiled their VRX for the Ascent line, for the quite cheap line of VTX and VRXs. I'm looking at buying one, but I need to test it for some things first, because I'm wondering if this one can actually work with my current goggles.
Yeah.
They probably can't, but there is a small chance that they might.
Yeah, no, cool. Let me know how it goes. No, that's
I
interesting.
get
I
to it.
like. I think that it's especially with the DJI ban that's happening. The Americans are nuts, but just with the DJI ban that's happening, I feel like it's creating this rush to sort of because I think Beta FPV just released their new Airlink, and I think the Ascent stuff you just mentioned as well. So I think it ultimately it'll be good for the hobby. I think I like DJI. I like digital too. I just built this O4 Air Tiny Whoop, which is just so heavy. It takes some getting used to. It's one of the reasons I'm not. I think for tiny whoops, digital isn't great. But yeah, I have the larger drones that I do more long distance stuff or freestyle with, and yeah, I tend to do those with digital. And I think they each have their uses, but mostly I like analog because it's cheap. As you're saying, the digital is quite expensive.
Yeah, for tiny whoops, most digital setups would be quite heavy, but as far as you go to the toothpicks, I think they are the ideal size for starting with digital. And one thing about this frame that I kind of forgot to mention, also this drone's name is Elky. I tried to name all of my drones. The one I lost was named Renegade. That means the one who lost, not lost his belief, who changed his belief,
I like that.
because yeah, that frame had quite an interesting story. That was the reason for that name. This one is Elky, basically the smaller, more cuter name of my username. And yeah, the reason I like this specific frame, the reason why I still fly it, because for some reason, I'm not sure if it's intended to be or am I just lucky, this thing handles crashes so well. Because it's a foldable and technically you're supposed to fix your arms, but each crash when they just fold back. So I'm not sure if it's the reason that it's still holding up. I crashed it quite a lot and it's still alive.
Yeah, no, I mean it
I
has to
guess I
survive the
forgot to add.
crashes, right? Nah, that's good. That's a good review for that drone too. Usually I don't hear good things about Darwin FPV, so I'm glad to hear that from you. No, that's really good. So we'll move on to the next question. Have you ever yelled at a tree?
I have not vocally yelled at a tree, but there was a few times that I had to hit a tree with a broom to get my drone back. Because sometimes, especially again when flying analog, you don't see the branches until it's too late. And with my setup, my lane latency is even worse. So I have hit tree branches quite a few times and I got my drone stuck on a tree quite a few times. And I still haven't set it up correctly to rearm basically after failsafe. So yeah, I will need to disable that feature so it will rearm after failsafes.
Good man. If FPV had a rule book, what rule would you add?
That's quite an interesting question because if that's a rule that has to be enforced, we already have quite a lot of rules in Germany which are connected to the FPV. So if you want to fly fully legally, it's already quite hard to do that.
Let's think more in the sense of you're handing down FPV to somebody who's just joined your club and you're giving them the FPV Bible, so to speak, and you've got 10 FPV commandments. What sort of commandment would you add?
10 commandments. Well, the first one would surely be take off props before you. If you're not ready to arm and fly, take off your props when you're working on your drone. Because
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most popular injuries with FPV, which can easily be omitted. And it's not fun stitching your fingers back together, especially when you're working with more powerful drones. That's the thing
Yes.
that I always tell people when I hand either our project drones or mine drones for flying. Second rule will be do not give your drone to other people if you're not willing to lose it. It's very scary to look at people who fly your drone. I have given my drone a few times to other people, but those people were much better pilots than I am, and I've still got really scared when they flew my drone. Third commandment is always use lipo-safe bags because you don't want to burn your house down. Because
Of
in
course.
FPV we crash our batteries quite a lot. Some people abuse their batteries, as I would say, because from my old times when I was 13 years old, we were quite gentle with our batteries. Nowadays people, well, they are batteries now are much better than not much, but they are better than they used to be, but it still feels wrong for me to charge at higher rates. That's
Yeah.
kind of additional. But they are basic FPV safety rules that I would go. Other than that, don't fly around people that are not connected to FPV in any way. That's the first rule that I would add.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to bother people. For example, skating, as far as I know, already have like that punky vibe that they are getting more restrictions in cities. There's like anti-skating stuff, some architecture that tries to omit skaters from being there. We don't really want to bother people with FPV even more with all of the scares that's going around FPV and drones in general. We kind of need to stay a little bit lower to the ground sometimes.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that's really good, and it's one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast is to get something out there that's because to tell people so people know a little bit more about FPV, and also that I mean every time when we're out there flying we represent the hobby in a way, you know what I mean? And you might be the first time or the first person that they encounter an FPV drone, and you want to make sure that as you say, you don't bother people, or if you can't help it, that they have a sort of a good experience with you. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm distracted by this guy because he's
No
just
worries.
come walking in. Look at him.
He has
Yeah,
such a nice pattern.
yeah. His name's Chester. I don't know what he's doing in here. I actually put something in front of the door to stop him from coming in, but he's just pushed it. Right, come on, off you go.
Looks nice.
He's a very lovely cat, but he's obnoxious. I don't know what he's doing in here. No, out, out. Because it'll only be a second before he starts yelling. You know, he's so obnoxious.
Yeah,
Okay.
I had a cat a while ago when I was like 7, was the last time I have seen her. But yeah, she was also quite obnoxious and she liked to scratch me very much because I liked to annoy it when I was younger.
Yeah. Nah, pets are good. I enjoy this. This guy's okay anyway. We've got two. We've got a black cat and there's this one who's a Bengal, and they're both very different because he's quite affectionate, but he doesn't want to be held. And the other cat, she is not very affectionate, but she, like, when she wants to be held, she's very insistent. Like, she will jump into your lap, or yeah, pets. There you go. With that said, though, talking about again FPV, following the rules, not bothering people. If FPV was illegal tomorrow, what would you do instead?
That's a question that I'm not sure how to approach. First things first, I'm not sure if we should say that, but most people who fly FPV are flying it illegally in one way or another. Most people, I think, break some kind of law. I'm not sure how it is in US, but in Germany, we need to stay under 25 milliwatts on our video side, which I think even most of the consumer drones that you buy off the market are breaking. You need to stay into specific ranges of your video transmission and your receiver transmitters. That's also things that some people break sometimes. What else do we have? We have spotters, which are kind of mandatory to have, which also some people do break that rule. Which one do we also break? Licenses, but licenses are kind of easy to get here, so
Yeah.
I think most people have licenses in Germany because it's just a test as far as I know, so it's quite easy to get. But even with those rules, not that hard to follow. The drone I have is fully set up to those rules because I need to show a good example in my club, and I
Yeah.
don't fly in places where I'm not supposed to. So again, those works. But in Germany, I think even tiny whoops, they considered a Class A1 drone because they have a camera and are no longer a toys. So you can't fly them in most places where there are people around. So you need to find specific zones where you're allowed to fly, which also makes things a little bit more complicated because some of the really nice places where you want to fly are considered illegal to fly. So it's already kind of hard to fly FPV fully legally. So if it was fully outright banned, and for example, I would get hunted by the police for even trying to start up a drone, if were no way to fly, or the punishment for that would be too harsh. I think there's only 2 hobbies that I have done that kind of give me that kind of fall in the same niche that if FPVs for me, so I would either ski more, which is also quite an expensive hobby that I can't do often,
Yeah.
or I would go to urban exploration more, which kind of gives the same feeling as FPV does. But
Yeah, no,
I
that's interesting.
yeah, but I do think most people would still be flying FPV if it was illegal,
Yeah,
because we
no,
already break a lot of laws.
yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I think, yeah, your answer's quite interesting because I've asked the question and people have said, well, I just keep flying FPV, which is, fair enough. But you've sort of said that, yeah, most people are flying illegally in some capacity anyway. And I think that's really, really quite true, especially, when you go into the detail again of the 25 milliwatts on your sort of transmitter, that sort of thing. Or is it milliwatts or milliamps, whatever it is?
Milliwatts.
Milliwatts, yeah. So it's yeah, there are some because I'm going to a racing event at the end of this week, Friday, I think I'm going there. And they test, of course, your drone needs to meet that requirement, and they gave you a list of known flight controllers that go over basically that aren't compliant and will never be compliant. And so that was the first time I encountered that. So yeah, no, you raised a really, really interesting point.
For racing, it's a little bit more of a practical reason too, because as far as I know, for racing, people are asking for you to be under 25 milliwatts is because there's so many drones around that you kind of need to isolate that radio band further. So you wouldn't interfere as much with other people drones. And even with that, sometimes you can kind of see picture of other drones on your band, which is not that nice when you're competitively racing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, so for flight controllers, I'm not sure if that's still a rule, because that might be the rule that practically everyone is breaking in Germany. Even this drone that I have is, I think on some kind of drones, you must have a transponder which always tells people around your GPS position, navigation, and heading. I'm not sure if that's still a requirement for every drone class, but if that still is, most people in Germany who fly, I think pretty much everyone in Germany who flies FPV will break that rule.
Right. Yeah.
So they're
We
already
have
legal punks.
Yeah, no. But that's the thing is you've sort of compared the hobby to skating and sort of that sort of thing, and it very much has that aspect and feel to it where you do have to be a little bit rebellious to get the flight time. Either that or you got to take a trip out to the park every time. And even then, somebody else might be out there or it's
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. So the next question I'm really interested to ask you because you've named your drone and you said it's one of your favorite. It's survived a lot of crashes. If your drone had feelings, what would it say about you?
That's a good question to ask my drone. Honestly, I'm not sure because it has gone through so much with me. So it's either very sick of me crashing and always repairing it, because on the hardware that it has, I think pretty much everything is stock which was repaired in some way or another. Some capacitors resoldered, some connectors also redone, but I like to think that my drone really loves the feeling of exploration as much as I do. The thrill that you get from flying, the yearn for the skies. So I would really love if my drone said that we have a very deep bond based on the love for exploration.
Absolutely. For me, I find it hard to not get attached to, because I had early on, I lost like two of my drones. Like I lost two in a day, which was ridiculous. Yeah, it it was two little digital ones too. It was really bad. But one of them I flew and it got caught on pigeon spikes, and then I sent up the second one just to see if I could see it, because if I can see it, maybe I can rescue it, right? But I accidentally I think I know what. I did something wrong with my tuning and the dynamic idle, but I disarmed it hoping it would come straight down, and right then it's sort of like I disarmed it and it went up and over into some water, so I lost two digital drones in a day, which was horrible. But yeah, I get quite attached to it. I still have this Air 65 is my favorite because it's gone into water and everything else and it's still flying, so I'm quite happy with that.
Hard not to get attached to those guys.
Yeah, you have to, because especially as you build it, you repair it, you spend so much time. Is that so much of your enjoyment is built around these pieces of equipment? It's and that's why I love the hobby, and it's why I love to hear about stuff like your goggles, because it's one thing to buy it and have it and to have it work, but once it breaks and you fix it, or if you build it yourself, that's when I feel like you're putting little pieces of your own soul into it, and it becomes something more than just this thing that you got off a shelf, you know?
Yeah, that's also how I feel to my drones.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm sure most pilots feel the same. Right. Okay. So we'll move on to the last section of questions. Quick fire round. So, soldering, love or hate?
With my background, I love soldering.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things you have to learn to love it, or you're gonna have a really bad time in this hobby, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
it's always
indoor versus outdoor for flying, which would you choose?
outdoor because indoor is always too small for my ambitions.
I love that. Indoors too small for my ambitions. I love that. That's great. You have one pack left. Are you gonna rip or are you gonna cruise?
I'm gonna rip because usually last pack is the smallest one of the bunch and the lightest one of the bunch that I have, so it flies the funniest.
Yeah. Nah. That's funny. It's usually the same for me as well, actually, especially when I fly the 4S or 6S drones. Nice. I can dig it. That reminds me, actually, what batteries does that Darwin FPV take?
This one is only 3S, which is kind of unfortunate. Yeah, so only 3S batteries.
No, 3S is good. I like it. Okay, so when you're out there flying, do you play music or anything like that, or is it just in silence?
I usually don't play music because I fly with spotters most of the time, but if I'm flying alone, I usually put music on.
Yeah, I get a vibe going. And so for propellers, biblade or triblade?
For the long range foldable biblades, for actual serious flying and serious FPV freestyle, I would say stiff three blades. They are not that different in a feel than foldable, but I still like stiff a little bit more.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And so, last question. Your DVR right now, everything that you have recorded, you have to choose. Are you going to show it all or are you going to hide it or delete it?
I must hide most of it.
No, of course. Why is that, if you don't mind me asking?
Some of it is with faces of other people, which probably did not agree to being published, and most of it is not good enough of a quality to show to people.
Nah, fair enough, fair enough. Nah, I get you. So yeah, that's pretty much all of my questions. I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to add or share to or say to the community. I think you're quite unique in the sense that you run a sort of FPV club at your sort of uni, so that's very interesting. But yeah, anything you'd like to add or say?
General tips: flying with people is quite more fun than flying alone. Just fly safe, don't bother people, and I hope our hobby will become more mainstream. Well, mainstream is not always better, but I hope we'll become more mainstream, so we'll have less restrictions to fly around.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. No, that's a good message. I think, yeah, community and always more fun with people. And I feel like it's we have some new laws coming in the UK from the CAA again around remote ID and stuff like that. But I feel like drones are coming. You know what I mean? Whether it be autonomous land vehicles or unmanned area vehicles, I think we're going to see more and more of drones for industrial applications. I feel like it's certainly around the hobby. A lot of people are really well placed, but I want us to, yeah, keep because again, people hear drones and they mostly think about war. You know what I mean? I'm like, it's so much more than that. You know?
They are everything can be used for war. Some things are much more fun when they're used in peaceful ways.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well said. Now, well, awesome, Elk. Thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to definitely speaking again and catching up and sort of keeping in touch.
Thank you very much for having me.